Hi, this is Tara. Welcome to Sky Gazing. Today we're studying Sutra number 2 of the second chapter, which is Sadhana in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Yesterday in Sutra 1, he told us what is Kriya Yoga and its three components, which is Tapasya, Swadhyaya, self-effort, and Ishvara Pranidhana, which is surrender or devotion to God. So today, what is he telling us? He's telling us samādhi-bhāvana-arthaḥ, kleśa-tanū-karaṇa-arthaḥ. Samadhi, absorption, bhavana is, it can be experience or conceptualization. It's basically to occupy the conceptual space of the mind, that which occupies the conceptual space of the mind. So it can be a feeling, it can be thought, it can be experience. Artha is purpose, meaning, or wealth. Klesha is afflictions. Tanu is attenuation, to make fine, to make slender, to refine. Karana is causal. So Tanu Karana is that which makes weak. So Maharishi Ved Vyasa says, for the purpose of bringing about trance, samadhi, and for the purpose of attenuating afflictions. So he says, it is that which being performed. What is being performed? It is that which being performed, which is tapasya, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana. Being performed brings about samadhi and attenuates the kleshas or afflictions. So why are we performing or those three components? So that our kleshas reduce. The afflictions thus attenuated become characterized by unproductiveness. They are unable to, they basically become dead seeds. So he says, when the seed power has been singed by the fire of high intellection, and for this reason, the mind after their attenuation, never again touched by the affliction, and having by their subtle cognition come up to the discrimination of the distinct natures of the Purusha and objective essence, has the whole of its duty fulfilled and can only resolve into its cause. So basically, when you perform these three, the seeds of kleshas become attenuated, become basically dead seeds, unable to be productive. They cannot function well, and they resolve into its cause. So then Vachaspati Mishra in his glossary says, the question arises that if yoga of action alone, if Kriya Yoga alone is competent enough to attenuate the afflictions, there remains no use at all in high intellectual. So why are we doing all the rest? Just, do Kriya Yoga and your kleshas are gone and you're done. For this reason, the commentator says, the afflictions thus attenuated become, etc. For this reason, he's saying the action of the yoga of action, Kriya Yoga, operates only in attenuating them. It doesn't completely remove them. It doesn't render the afflictions barren, which is why he's using the word Tanu-Karana. He is diminishing them. He is not completely eradicating them. So high intellection, however, operates to render them barren. So the higher processes basically completely sort of remove them. So he says that when you perform tapasya, through tapasya, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana, a fire named viveka khyati. What is the purpose of tapasya? Tapasya generates heat. In that heat, from that heat arises a fire named viveka khyati, which is discriminative knowledge. And this is what basically singes the kleshas. It reduces them. So it's basically, you can see it metaphorically, that there's basically this, the light of knowledge is so, wisdom as it starts dawning is so bright as to be a flame that therefore reduces our afflictions. We behave better, we act better when we are backed by knowledge. Or you can see it literally in that it actually generates, tapasya actually generates heat. And if you consider these kleshas as seeds of learned behaviors and mental patterns that live within us, these get burnt up. Either way, he says it's a gradual process. Further klesha can only be reduced to the limit they become ineffective. They cannot be destroyed. Why? Because they linger as samskaras. Okay. So, tapas not only purifies the body, but also the mind. And here, through tapas, we also mean asana, which is our purpose in studying this. So, at the same time, swadhyaya purifies the mind and the heart. And thus, all of these being composing Kriya Yoga, it provides the practitioner with, when practiced consistently, it frees us from the 5 kleshas. Okay, so it advances the purity of the mind, intellect, and heart. For what I mean by purity, please refer to yesterday's episode. Swami Satyananda says, for developing the consciousness of samadhi and for the purpose of thinning out the causes of afflictions, Kriya Yoga is practiced. So there are 2 purposes of practicing Kriya Yoga. The first is developing samadhi. The second is thinning out the kleshas. Samadhi has already somewhat been discussed. Swami Satyananda says it's only one purpose of Kriya Yoga. The second is overcoming the kleshas. And the causes of afflictions are gradually diminished. And for this purpose, Kriya Yoga is practiced. So he says that by the practice of Kriya Yoga, an emotional state of samadhi, please note what he's saying. He's saying an emotional state of samadhi is attained, and this samadhi is completely different in that the bhakta develops an emotional trance-like state by intense bhakti or singing devotional songs. It's also a state of fusion, but the fusion is sublimation on an emotional level. So maybe by Kriya Yoga, the physical, psychic, and emotional bodies are modified. As a result of that, the entire structure of samadhi is on a different level. So this is like you're in Bombay and you're taking the Karjat local instead of the Kasara local. Your track is different. Okay. And so while many of the stations are somewhat same up to a point, beyond that, you're heading to a different kind of samadhi through Kriya Yoga. As a result of that, the entire structure is different. By Kriya Yoga, kleshas are removed and thereby the higher state of samadhi becomes easier. These will become more clear as we proceed. Swami Vivekananda says there are, for the practice of samadhi and minimizing the pain-bearing obstructions. He calls kleshas pain-bearing obstructions. So most of us, he says, make our minds like spoiled children, allowing them to do what they want. Therefore, we should have constant practice of previous mortifications. I find that word very, very difficult. You know, it's like tapasya is this mortification. It's something that is extremely painful. Whereas, say for those of you who may have practiced Vipassana meditation or any, serious form of meditation where you're sitting for 14 to 15 hours a day, it feels difficult. But there is a point at which you begin to enjoy the difficulty. You enjoy the pain. So also with asana, it is there are asanas that are extremely complicated. Like I'm currently struggling with Marichasana, especially D, and the body is not used to certain convolutions or movements. So until it adapts, and even after it does, it is a little painful and difficult. But it's not. I object, sorry, Swami Vivekananda, but I object to the word mortification because it sounds like you're dreading it, but you don't. It's kind of like you enjoy putting yourself through that process of work. Anyway, so he says, therefore, we should have constant practice of previous mortifications in order to control the mind and bring it into subjection. The obstacles of yoga arise from this lack of control and cause us pain. and they can only be removed by denying the mind or depriving the mind and holding it in check through these various means. BKS Iyengar says the practice of yoga reduces afflictions and leads to samadhi. By reducing these afflictions to a minimum or even eradicating them, Kriya Yoga promotes profound meditation, which is a precursor to samadhi. Note that Swami Satyananda says this is a different samadhi, and BKS Iyengar calls it a precursor to samadhi. The purpose of this yoga is to minimize all impediments to meditation and bring the intelligence to full, vibrant life. Osho, I couldn't find his exact commentary on this one because I have a version in which he's combined a couple of things. But broadly, what he says is we practice Kriya Yoga to remove painful barriers, kleshas, and once removed, samadhi is revealed as our natural state. So this is an important concept because it shows this path is not one of attainment. It's not about acquisition of power or a process of becoming something that we are not. It's a path of unlearning. So Osho sees it as this removal, stripping away of what is obstructing us from that state of samadhi, which are fundamentally kleshas. Over here, it's very similar to the Buddhist view, which of course Osho propagates. And he says, you are surrendered. It is a revelation, a realization. Suddenly you are amazed. You are absent and God is there. In your absence is God. In your presence is only misery. In your presence, nothing is possible. In your absence, the whole infinity becomes possible. These are interrelated things: austerity, self-study, and surrender to God. Barbara Stoller Miller says its purpose is to cultivate pure contemplation and attenuate the forces of corruption. And she says these forces of corruption or klesha, which Patanjali will elaborate in the aphorisms that follow, arise out of our contact with the chaos of phenomenal existence and motivate our actions in the world. Only by distancing ourselves from this mental and physical chaos through the practice of Kriya Yoga can the power of corruptions be diminished. So this was Sutra number 2 of the Sadhana Pada. Thank you so much for listening. Come back tomorrow for Sutra number 3.